Welcome to We Can Be Heroes, the LinkedIn newsletter. I'm so thrilled to have eco hero Robyn O'Brien with us today. She is profiled in my book as the Beacon the Beacon Service Superpower. And I'm just thrilled to have Robyn with us. So Robyn, if you could just talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to get involved in climate action.
100% it's my kids. I firmly believe that the way that we govern today is the way our children are going to live tomorrow. And as a mother of four, and they're now between the ages of 18 and 23, we have very real conversations around what are you doing? What are you doing, mom? And what are people doing? And why are they doing it this way? And why is our governance this way? And my kids inspire me absolutely every single day. And so do all the dozens of kids that come through my house every single day. And as any mother knows, that call to action, that love we have for our children, to me, is probably one of the most powerful.
Absolutely. And so much of what we talk about and so much of what I talk about at onegreenthing.org is the idea that climate action is rooted in love and rooted in joy. We need to pay it forward. We need to be the awesome ancestors that our current loved ones and future loved ones deserve. But I would love to talk to you a little bit about, what upcoming projects you're excited about. For those who have read the book, they know that you are an expert in finance and regenerative agriculture and in climate. Can you talk to us about what's ahead for you?
Yeah, I very much feel that my next chapter is going to be supporting emerging female leaders. And, for so many of us, we didn't really have a strong female mentor, champion, advisor, somebody who was going to, be our advocate at the table. And as I've worked with so many different female farmers, female funders, and female founders, they get off the call and they'll be like, that's the first time I felt like somebody had my back. And to me, that's probably one of the greatest ways you can show up for a friend is in that capacity to say, hey, I got your back. And, as women sort of step into these different leadership opportunities and different leadership roles, they need access to information, equity, capital, board of directors, things that the guys sort of have just tucked away. And so to really create those opportunities for women, because I firmly, firmly believe we will not solve these climate crises until we have that equity and representation at the governance level. I think we absolutely need more women in governance at every single level, corporate, nonprofits, local, federal, state, everywhere. We need women and that representation because we bring this multi-generational lens as mothers. And we're mindful of whatever we're doing today is absolutely impacting the tomorrow for our children. And it's an intuitive understanding, and it's just a guiding compass for so many women. And I think we need more of us at the table.
Amen. Thank you so much, Robyn, for your leadership. And I think when you're talking about the need for more women mentoring women and creating those networks, that kind of comes to my next question, which is, what is the best career advice or life advice that you've gotten, especially all the different roles that you've had, throughout your career?
There are two pieces. One from a mutual friend, Aaron Brockovich, who said, you can't screw up the lines. This is your story. This is your life. You know it, tell it. You cannot screw up the lines. And I think too often women sort of second guess or doubt, or they think they've got to reframe or reshape or do something differently. Be you. You cannot screw up the lines when you're you. That's really important. And then I think, to really live with this kind of transparency, to say, to be able to move forward in your life and live with a complete transparency. And, I think what we're learning is that also requires an authenticity around the messiness. And as we come through these messy chapters, I will argue that those are probably some of the best learning curves you will ever be on. And that the more that we can open up and candidly share, hey, this was really incredibly hard for me, and this is what I learned in that experience, the more it gives other people to open up that opportunity to open up and share too. Because I think one of the things that holds us back is shame. When we feel like we're the only one who is feeling this way, or I'm the only one who may have gone through this. And I promise that's not true. So as we can start to normalize these things and these experiences that we have had as women, it de-shames it. And shame can be such a harness, and so the more that we just are open and honest and authentic, I think the faster we can get there.
Oh, I love that. I think that's so important, especially when you think about shame and perfection and how those go hand in hand. And so many women are in this people pleasing role and feel like they can't mess up. And this idea of making mistakes, of failing, of, whether it be betrayal, whether it be a deal gone bad, or, oh my gosh, I missed something. Like sharing the messiness, I think, is a really important part of creating that space. I think that's such good advice. And I love the idea that you can't screw up the lines of your story is like such wonderful.
Yeah, that's full credit to Erin. That's Erin.
That is
Yeah, I
fantastic.
just remember before I was taking the stage for the TED Talk, that's what she said, and it's really true. And I echo that anytime somebody's nervous about their public speaking, including my son 2 nights ago. It's like, it's your story. You can't screw up the lines. So the best thing you can do is just show up completely authentically you.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so grateful that you're on the board of onegreenthing.org and you're featured in my book as well. One of the things we try to do at One Green Thing is kind of break down climate action in a way that's doable for folks. You know, a lot of people think they have to have a PhD in order to be part of this movement. So we have this service superpower assessment where you can kind of see what your strengths are in service and then adopt a daily practice of sustainability, which is a One Green Thing. And I'd love to know kind of what is your favorite One Green Thing?
Gosh, there are so many. So I would say, like, we all have these superpower characteristics. This isn't like somebody that's up on a pedestal. Like, this is everybody. It's our kids. It's everybody has this opportunity. But I will say something that I am like really trumpeting on right now is where you put your money, the banks you put your money into really, really matters. Like, we're so aware of how we go to the grocery store and where we shop and what we put into our grocery carts. Same thing with our financial products. Those financial products that we choose to put into our financial shopping carts have either a climate agenda or not. And unfortunately, not enough people know sort of this relationship between big banks and big oil. And big oil tends to be some of their biggest clients. So, you know, really to start to explore, just as we've come through this incredible awakening in the food movement and learned about, you know, where we shop, how our food is made, that same opportunity exists in finance. So what I will say, especially to women out there, is it's not complicated. The powers that be want you to think that this is so complicated and it's something you can't possibly understand. It is so straightforward. It is such an incredible opportunity to make an impact. So, you know, you can do it in your grocery store, you can do it with your bank, you can start a garden, you can educate your kids, you can empower your kids. There's all kinds of documentaries that are out there, books like yours that give such an amazing portfolio of people who are just so inspiring. So really, I just think, you know, find the thing that you're comfortable doing, really get engaged. But, you know, just as I've talked so much about our food system and grocery stores and the products in grocery stores, it's pretty interesting to have this conversation around banks and really start to understand how we can make an impact there.
I think that's so important for women to think about wealth and not only creating wealth, but also how do they vote with their wallet. And a lot of the conversations, just like you said, that we're comfortable with is voting with our wallet with respect to what we buy, but how we invest our money. I think that's a great opportunity for so many people to learn about climate finance. What does it mean? How to choose not only the right bank, but also the right investments, the funds. How do you get your 401k to be fossil fuel free? I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for growth.
There's so much, and it really, you know, our money is working all the time, even while we sleep. And so if it's sleeping with the big oil companies, guess what it's working on, you know? So really, the more that we can understand here, the smarter that we can get. And thankfully, there are people like Kat Taylor, who started a company called Beneficial Bank. There's a whole B Corp movement that's happening in the bank. So, you know, really we're at the very beginning of it, which, you know me, like, I love movements as they're emerging and starting. And I think there's real opportunity there. And then I will say, you know, for a lot of women, it's like, we feel like, oh, who am I to talk about finances? You know, that was my husband or that was my dad. Again, bullshit. You have an incredible brain in your head. You've figured out all of these really complex things for your family and for your kids. You can figure this out too. It's not that complicated. One of my friends calls it the money wound. And I think that's a really interesting way to talk about it. And just as we've healed our relationship with food, we now have the opportunity to heal this relationship we have with money so that it can really serve us in a really powerful way as we work to heal all these issues with climate.
And I think that's a conversation that many people are uncomfortable to have. You know, not only does it seem so complicated, I don't have a background, I don't have an MBA like Robyn O'Brien, so can I talk about finance, but also just money. Money is not a conversation that a lot of women feel really comfortable having, talking about building wealth, accruing wealth, or losing wealth, like how it all works. So I think these are all really important conversations to have in climate.
They're really, and I mean, and again, it's like, I cannot emphasize enough, if you have figured out the grocery store you can figure out the bank. I promise.
I love that. If you figured out the grocery store, you can figure out the bank. That's
100%.
such great advice. Now, Robyn, you have a huge platform. You've written a best-selling book. You have a TED Talk with more than 1 million views. You've been in the public eye for so long. So I think a lot of people feel like they know you. Could you share maybe something that's a surprising fact that, people wouldn't necessarily know, even if they've been following you for a while?
I think probably one of my favorite is that I was in New York on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And I was there visiting some of our traders. This was back before I had children. And the guys were like, hey, do you want to run a trade across the floor of the stock exchange? I was like, yes. I mean, who would say no to that? What an amazing thing to be able to say you did. So they were like, okay, we're going to give you the ticket. This was before everything was digitized. They were like, we're going to give you the ticket. And, that's the guy over there. Just, when we count to 3, we want you to just run. And so they start to count. They're like, give us your jacket. Because it was in November. So they're like 1, 2, 3. So I like drop this, this trench coat. And I start sprinting across the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, with this ticket. I come back and their mouths are on the floor, because what that giant winter coat was hiding was that I was 7 months pregnant. And so I like to think that I am probably one of the only people who has ever run a trade across the floor of the New York Stock Exchange 7 months pregnant.
Oh,
So
that's
maybe like one of my things. And it really, I think for weeks, those guys called and apologized. And I was like, I'm good. And that's a great story. And now that child is 23 and, here we are.
Oh, what a wonderful story. I love that. And that's one I haven't heard, even though we've known each other for years. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think when we opened our conversation and we talked about the need for mentoring, especially, women mentoring each other, we talked a lot about your kids that, are the ones who inspired you to really get involved in this work and go to that next level. I'd love to ask you, is there a mentor? Is there an ancestor? Is there someone like in your past that has helped you kind of be who you are?
Yeah,
I mean,
there are a handful that come to mind. In real time on this planet, Rose Macario has been an incredible friend. The former CEO of Patagonia. She is absolutely a pioneer in so many ways and has just been an incredible friend. But I would say the person that probably has influenced me the most, I never met. And he was my grandfather. And he was a minister. He was the head of a church, and he died of a stroke when he was 54 years old, which is pretty much my age, which now is very, that felt so old when I was a child. My mother was in her early 20s when he died, and I never knew him. And she went on to work with Save the Children in Vietnam after he died. And that's where she met my dad, who was in the Army. But I was giving a talk probably about 8 years ago at the University of Colorado. And this tiny woman came up to me afterwards and she said, I felt like I was in church. And Heather, in that moment, I knew that this gift I have of being able to speak publicly on these issues, it 100% came from my grandfather. And I knew in that moment for sure that that's how I knew my grandfather. And I'm so grateful for that, because my family used to say, like, how do you know how to do this? And I didn't know. I don't know. I just kept saying, I don't know. It just comes out of me in this really natural, intuitive way. And that's when I realized it was because that's the part of my grandfather that I carry.
That's such a beautiful story, Robyn. It is. And I think so many of us have stories like that of people who we may have never met, that have, and sometimes they didn't even know us, but created these incredible opportunities and paths for us moving forward. And that's one of the things that I try to get people to think about when we think about climate action is, how can we be the awesome ancestors that our future loved ones deserve? And I would love to just kind of ask you, because I have an exercise like this in the book of, what do you hope that your personal legacy will be? Like, what do you want your family to remember you for, your professional contacts? Like, what do you want your legacy to be?
I have a childhood friend from Houston who is an author. And in one of her first books, she wrote, you have to be brave with your life so that others will be brave with theirs. And I would hope that my legacy is that I inspired people to be brave with their lives, that I inspired my children to be brave with their lives, and that the people that I worked with and touched were inspired to be brave with their lives. Because I really think that is what is being called for from all of us. I say the skills that we need now moving forward in the face of this climate crisis are courage, creativity, and collaboration. And so if I can help inspire people to be braver and however they show up, and it's not one size fits all, it's going to look and feel differently to all of us. But I think, I would hope that that would be part of my legacy, and that people would remember that it was done with just tremendous love, because to me, that is the greatest motivator, and fear paralyzes people. And I think all too often in these movements, fear is sort of weaponized in what's used. And to me, that's not the right mode. That's not the right compass. So I would hope that I would be remembered for courage and love.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Robyn. And, what an important thing to aspire to is, inspiring others to be brave and to use courage and love in their life as well. Thank you so much. I just have one final question for you, and that is, how can people learn more about you? I will make sure that the Unhealthy Truth is in the LinkedIn newsletter, but how can they follow you, learn more about you, and learn more about your work?
The most current place to contact me is either on LinkedIn, which is such an active and robust community. It's an incredible dialogue there. And also you can reach out at soronaventures.co. And I'm sure, Heather, you'll pop that into the newsletter too. But those are the two places that are the most current. But, again, just wherever you can find me, reach out, tag me on something. I fully believe in this incredible power that is this collaboration of all of us coming together. And I think especially as mothers, we have an intuition and a wisdom and an intelligence that is so needed right now. And so when you start to doubt yourself, because we all do, and oh gosh, I know you've been through it. I know I've been through it. When you start to doubt yourself, you have to remind yourself that all of this multi-generational wisdom has been passed down. And that, naturally, of course, like our cells hold this incredible wisdom that our grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents held. So you can move forward knowing that you have this, incredible understanding that is an internal intuition. And then to build the team and people around you, the friends around you that are really honest and true, that you can bounce ideas off of, so that you really are showing up in your highest capacity. That's what I always hope is like, how can I be of the highest service here? Where is that? And the more that you start to align into that place, the faster things start to move and things become frictionless. That's a big word for me, and more fluid. And so, really being able to sit in that dis-ease and sit in that discomfort so that you really find where things can become frictionless, that's a pretty powerful exercise. I know you've been through it, and I know I have too. So, I think when those stages come that are uncomfortable, sit with them and figure out what
Absolutely.
it's telling you.
Absolutely. And changes, which we've, all been through, but also, for I'm a type A person, for like things not to go according to my plan. I set a goal, I had a plan, I did the things. That's always kind of shocking to people like me, and understanding that discomfort is where the growth happens, and where you tap into that inner knowing that you so eloquently spoke about, Robyn, and that you do speak about with all of your international speaking gigs as well. Well, I'm just so grateful to you, Robyn, for your leadership, for your message, for all that you're doing in regenerative agriculture and supporting women in finance and in climate finance. And I'm just so grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Oh, you too, Heather. And I just, thank goodness that our paths crossed however many years ago, and it's been so much fun to watch you do your thing, and to be able to celebrate that, and, just to continue to elevate and up level and lift, and I think that's what this is about, and it's just coming from this incredible positive place, and that there's so much opportunity. Your book alone like touches on all of these different places where we can get involved. There's so much opportunity. So bring your fullest self, do you, whatever that is. Each of us is different, thank goodness. And get Heather's book, because it's such an amazing resource, and it's going to inspire you with so many different examples, so that you will be like, oh, I'm like this person, or maybe I like this person. And again, I think that kind of inspiration and that positivity is so important right now. So thank you.